So we're recording. All right. So today I wanted to talk about business building. How do we get from here to there? Again, this series of sessions I'm doing right now is driven by you guys. I send out a bunch of messages, and if I haven't gotten to you yet, I apologize. I will. Just asking people, what do they want to learn? What are the top 3 things you want to learn right now while we've got the extra time? And I got about 26 different ideas, and some of them were repeated. But one that came up a few times was how do I build my business in normal times or now? How do I get from here to there? If I've got an end goal in mind, or even if I just have an idea of how much money I want to make, how do I get there? What are the things I need to do to build my business to get there? So I thought I'd share my thoughts on how to do that. So just get to this.
A race car?
Race car?
A race car.
Oh, what you saw on my screen there, these, somebody's gotten really good at Photoshop or something, but these are like actual cars that have been wrapped in the movie Cars in their paint schemes. So I thought it was kind of neat. I just stuck it on there. I'm that kind of a nerd.
Fun to do that.
All right, so business building, getting from here to there. So remember, this too shall pass. We're in an extraordinary circumstance now, but it will go away. And when it does, do you know what you're going to be doing to build your business, right? So that's the discussion for today. So what are we going to talk about? Taking a look at your previous goal for 2020, recognizing that we've hit a major roadblock right here, and we're going to have to slowly work through it. How will you have to make adjustments to your business plan? Are you just convinced that you're going to make less money, or are you convinced that you can take this and turn it into an opportunity and double down on your efforts and make more money this year? And wherever there is, how do you get there? What is it that we need to do? And knowing that we're behind our expectations, how many different things do I need to do, or how am I going to create that atmosphere for myself to be successful for the remainder of the year? So what was your plan? And I'm not asking you guys to actually share it in the group, but I want you to be cognizant of the fact that you should have had a goal. Going into 2020, you should have said to yourself, I need to make $150,000. I need to make 250, or I want to make 500, whatever, or 50,000. I don't care, whatever your number is. So what did you have a goal? How much had you planned on making this year? And before we came into this crisis, and before everyone was told to stay home, shelter in place, lockdown, quarantine, whatever term you want to use, were you on track? Were you tracking towards getting to that goal? Were you behind, or were you ahead? I hope you were ahead, because the year started off fantastic. We were doing gangbusters, right, up until the beginning of March. So were you on track, or doing a little bit better? And what were you doing to get there? Don't lose sight of the fact that you were doing something successful, whatever that was. Don't forget about that, because it will work in the future again. And there is a magic formula to real estate. I've known for years that there was a target number of conversations you needed to have to do transactions. If you have ever listened to Tom Ferry talk about this, and from my own experience in the past, Tom says if you have between 40 and 80 conversations, depending on your skill level and how long you've been in the real estate business, 40 to 80 conversations, you'll do a transaction. And it's based in the math, okay? So how do we get to that math? Let's talk about that. So the formula is, what's your target? How much money do you want to make this year? Start with the average commission you did last year per deal. So if you did 15, 10, 20 transactions last year and you earned a certain gross commissions, divide the number of transactions into your gross commissions, and you'll get an understanding of what is your average commission per deal, right? So start with your average commission per deal, divide your target for 2020 by that average commission, and that will tell you how many deals you need to do this year to hit that goal, okay? So what's not on this list is you probably did a couple of deals early in the year. You're gonna have to subtract those from this total. So in my example here, and this is just, I pulled numbers out of the air, $150,000 a year at $10,000 per transaction would be 15 deals. It's just simple math. You gotta do 15 deals to get to the 150 gross. If I'd already done 2 or 3 deals in the first part of the year, I only need 12 or 13 more for the balance of the year, okay? And I say only tongue in cheek, I get it, it's hard work and it's gonna take some effort to get there. okay? But to get to 15 transactions, now what? How am I going to get there? If it's a certain number of conversations, what is it? So the deeper understanding that I've gotten out of this in the last little while, particularly from Rob Vivian, is he takes that that 40 to 80 conversations, breaks it down even farther to a simple understanding of the number of transactions I'm going to do this year is directly related to the number of leads I get this year. And the math is 1 in 4 leads works out, okay? Get 4 leads, you'll close a deal. Need 15 deals, get 60 leads. Want 20 deals, get 80 leads, okay? It's really that simple. And we're gonna go into that a little bit more, how the numbers relate to each other in the next slide. But I've made a note here that you should be asking, what's a lead, right? And that comes up in conversation a lot either when I'm having this discussion with someone or in one of Rob's sessions, somebody always says, well, what's a lead? You talked about getting 4 leads to do a transaction. What's a lead? A lead is, and you guys should have a pen, write this down. A lead is someone who says that they want to buy or sell in the next 90 days. Someone who says, maybe if I got a really sweet offer on my house, I'd sell it. Or, yeah, I'm thinking about selling next year. Or, I've got a 2-year plan, That's great, but those aren't really leads. Those are prospects, right? So they don't count. When I'm talking about the 1 in 4, those ones don't count. But if someone says to you, I need to move in the next 90 days, or I want to move in the next 90 days, that's a lead. Okay, so I hope that's clear for everybody. Yeah, that's what a lead is. Anything else is a prospect. And I vary in my take on this. Rob would say to you, if they're not a lead, don't spend time on them. If they're not moving for 6 months or a year, just cycle them out and leave them on the side. I would tend to disagree. I think those people should go into your sphere list and they should get a call from you every quarter. And then when it gets in within that 90 days, every month, so that you can speed up the process. And when they say, yeah, it's time to start thinking about this, now they become a lead and they go into the regular lead follow-up process. So I vary a little bit on that from that perspective, because I don't want you to leave money on the table, and you've done the work to create these prospects. You might as well work them a little bit. How to find 60 leads or more. This is the part that people don't like. Okay, you have to talk to people on a regular basis. You've got to talk to a lot of people, and it sounds like a big number. Okay, and I want to relate this back to the first part of the conversation where I said that, Tom Ferry talks about 40 to 80 conversations leads to a transaction. Well, if we use 60 as the average, between 40 and 80, 60 conversations, his math matches Rob's math. And here's how. How often do you think people move? Probably about once every 7 years is what I'm hearing from people all the time. Oh, people move every 5 to 7 years. No, they don't. That was a stat that we all learned in the 90s, and it's not true. They actually move about every 14 or 15 years. Okay, so I use 15 as the outside number to track how many times people are moving. People move about every 15 years on average. When you're younger, you tend to move more often, right? As you get older, you stay in your home for longer and longer. But the average is about every 15 years. Okay, so if I know that people move on average every 15 years, it stands to reason if I speak to 15 people, one of them is thinking about making a move. I think that makes sense to me. And if I know that 1 in 4 leads, so if I talk to 15 people, one of them's thinking about making a move, I got to do that 4 times to get 4 leads, right? So 4 times 15 is 60, which means 1 in 60 conversations turns into a transaction, right? So 60 conversations is 1 sale, because in those 60 conversations, I will have picked up 4 leads. So if I need to do 15 transactions, at the bottom here, I've made a note, 60 times 15, so 60 conversations times 15 transactions is 750 conversations I've got to have this year, okay? That's where the numbers get big. When I say you got to talk to a lot of people, 750 people is how you get to 15 transactions, okay? And don't forget, guys, if you have questions, you want to interrupt me, just hold down your space bar and go ahead, pipe up, and I'm happy to entertain your curiosity as we go through this, okay? So how much time will we have left this year? We are in the middle of a pandemic crisis. We cannot go out and do typical lead generation right now. So the tap has been turned off, right? The only thing we've got right now that we can do is reach out to our sphere as we normally would, call them every 90 days, step that up right now because we should be speaking to people and, and letting them know we're there for them, asking them if they're okay and if they need any help. So you're going to step up that process right now. Typically you would do it every 90 days. But really, there's not much else we can do. We can do some virtual open houses if we're real careful about it, but we can't go door knocking right now. We can't do typical open houses right now. We can't do farming activities right now. We could call FSBOs, but it might come off as a little bit aggressive. If you're comfortable with it and you think you can do it tastefully, go ahead. But it might come off as a little bit snaky right now. So we're limited. When we come out of this, when we're told that we can go back to a somewhat normal business, then we're going to have do a year's worth of work in a compressed period of time, or 10 months of work compressed into a shorter period of time. So how do we do that? We look at what time is left. So I'm just guessing here. If we get back to full time in July, and that's probably optimistic, but that gives us 6 months left in the year, right? 6 months at 25 days per month of work, which is more than I would typically say. So typically I say, look, you should be planning on working 20 days a month, 240 days a year. On average, I think that's probably a lot, but we're going to have to work harder. We're going to have to spend more time on this stuff for the balance of the year because we've lost so much time, right? And buyers and sellers are going to be more active, I think, and that their timelines are going to be compressed as well. So all of us are going to have to work a little bit harder for the balance of the year once we get back up and running here. So if we say there are 6 months left in the year, once we get up and running, 25 days a month, that's 150 days we're going to have to work this year, okay, in the balance of the year. 750 conversations over 150 days is just 5 a day, okay? So the math doesn't change a whole lot for most people, but 5 conversations a day, 25 days a month, okay, for the rest of 2020 starting in July, assuming, and I'm making a big assumption, I get it, that we're back to work in July. So my note here, if it's not in the schedule, it doesn't exist. So it's one thing to know that I've got to make these conversations and I got to talk to this many people. What do I actually have to do every day to build my business going forward? Okay. So the business building activities, right? Prospecting for new business, following up on calls and appointments, actually getting appointments, showings and meetings with folks. And I think the showings and meetings, I think we're going to take some of this technology, some of this Zoom technology that we're using now, and some virtual meetings and virtual tours. I think more of that's going to carry forward, even when we get to a point where we know that it's safe to meet with people face to face. I think people are going to like the convenience of this, and our job is going to change a little bit to adopt more of this technology. It was here before, we just weren't using it, but I think we're going to be pushed into it. Okay, so all of us need to be brushing up on our skills on how to use this technology, because I think we're going to have to use it going forward, even when we're out of this crisis. And I've asked this question before, even in sales meetings. What has to happen before I get a deal to close? I've got to write a transaction, right? There's no transaction in place, there's no deal to close. But before I get a transaction in place, I have to do what? I got to show some properties, or I've got to take a listing. And before that happens, I've got to get a contract signed, either a buyer rep agreement or a listing agreement. And before that happens, I've got to have some appointments. And before I get the appointments, I got to talk to some people. So all of those things need to go in your schedule. If they're not in the schedule, they don't exist. If you're not planning for them, they might happen, but it'll happen by accident, okay? So this is an example of a typical schedule. This, you're going to have to make modifications to it. And this is, I use this from an older presentation that's really only got 5.5 days in it of work. That 6th day of work that I'm suggesting we might have to do is going to be more full than what this appears to be here, okay? Because we're going to have to double down on our efforts. But you'll see in the schedule that every day at the same time, I've got wake up and do morning routine. Every day, same time of the schedule, check the hot sheets, look at my new messages, right? And then I've got my actual prospecting activities. I've got call Sphere and call SOI. I've got go to the sales meeting in here, call FSBOs. I've got in here client meetings, right? So I've got all the stuff lined out in my schedule so that I know what I'm doing on a daily basis. Think about this. Have you ever woken up in the morning and when you didn't have a schedule like this and realized there's a bazillion things I could be doing in my real estate business, so I don't really know what I'm going to do, so I'm going to just go get another cup of coffee. I'm just going to go talk to somebody I already am working with or somebody I already know instead of building a new business. It's happened to me. So I know it's happening to some of you, okay? Put it in the schedule and stick to the schedule as often as you can, okay? You will see in here, though, that I have left some large blanks. I've got client meetings in here 3 times a week, okay? And listing appointments a couple of times a week. I've put those in the calendar, even though those appointments don't yet exist. So, and the reason for that is if I'm talking to someone at 9 o'clock on Monday morning in my sphere of influence, and they say, geez, Doug, it's amazing you called because we've just been thinking about selling our house. Then gives me an opportunity to say, well, listen, I've got time this week that I can make available to meet with you. I've got something this afternoon at 2, and again on Wednesday at 2. Would either of those work for you? Because I've got targets in my schedule, I can say that to them. I can say, hey, why don't we get together on such and such time? But I've also got these big blanks in here, right? These empty spots in my schedule allow me for some flexibility that if this one doesn't work and this one doesn't work, they might suggest another one that I can fill in one of these blanks, okay? And I'm not naive to think that this is going to work exactly 9 till 10:30 every day. Something's going to come up and you're going to have to go to another appointment. You're going to have to, fix a flat tire. You need some flexibility, some blanks in your schedule so you can move some of these things around. I get that. So that's why I intentionally designed the schedule this way. There's blanks in it here. There are target appointments in here so that I can have something to shoot for, okay? So what are the kinds of things you're going to have to do to build your business? Call your sphere of influence, right? That's the one non-negotiable. We got to call our sphere on a regular basis. You're going to have to pick, am I going to work for sale by owners? Am I going to do open houses when it's safe to do so in the future? Am I going to do geographic farming, again, when it's safe to do so in the future? Am I going to do just random door knocking? Am I going to find some actives and solds and go door knocking? Whatever it is, what are those activities? And I've got to put them in the schedule so that I've got a target so I can get to my end goal. So some tips. You're going to have to replace some of your face-to-face activities for a while. What else can you do? So I've got some ideas here. More online work, more telephone calls, more community building. The online work and the community building, you're going to have to, if you're not already there, I think you're going to have to get comfortable with some social media, okay? Because that's where people are now. Social media has exploded right now. Hang on, got a question in the chat. Oh, thanks, Stacy. We'll talk to you later. See you, Jack. Okay, what else are we going to do? Some more online work. Call our sphere. We've got to be more active on social media. And when I talk about community building, suggestion for you, start some Facebook groups around specific communities. If you were going to do some geographic farming, or if you were doing geographic farming, this is something you should be doing anyway. But if I lived in the North End, I'm going to start a Facebook group called Living in the North End, right? And just start generating some content of what it's like to live there. The buy was for Stacy. Sorry, Jack. Glad you're sticking around. Okay. Build some communities in Facebook. Become the source of information. And I'm not talking about going in there and talking about real estate on a regular basis. Just be the mayor, quote unquote, the mayor of the North End. Be the mayor of Norwood. Be the mayor of Lakefield. Whatever has to be. You want to become the spokesperson for that area and make some connections. I've often said, if you're the connector, if you know that someone is looking for a carpenter and you know a real good carpenter, connect them to each other. Be the connector. People remember the people that help them in that way. They'll know that you're in real estate, right? They're going to look you up. They'll see your profile. They'll know you're in real estate. But if you're not pushy about it, they're going to respect that. So do some community building. So another tip here, the 70 to 80% rule. What would happen if you stuck to your schedule 70 to 80% of the time? My guess is even if you have a schedule now, you're not doing that. But think what would happen if my schedule allowed me to reach my 150,000 goal. Even if I did 80% of that in my schedule, I'd be a hell of a lot closer to getting there than I am right now, right? So that's what I'm suggesting, 78% of the time. And how do you do that? During the time blocks that you've created. So you've got your schedule. You've got your schedule. If I stick to this, or once I've got my time blocks in here, for example, 9 o'clock till 10:30 Monday morning, if I really am diligent about this and disciplined, and during that time, I'm not doing anything else, and I do that 70 to 80% of the time, I think that my productivity would shoot through the roof, right? So that's what I want you to think about there. During your time blocks, that's all you do. Take breaks, look after your nutrition, get enough sleep. This is important. Everybody right now, during this, everybody's staying home. I'm finding myself watching too much TV at night. So I'm really working hard at going to bed at the same time every night. And you get lost and, there's nothing else to do. I can't go anywhere. So I'm just going to watch more Netflix. So turn it off at the same time, go to bed, get up at the same time every day, and work to a schedule. Okay. You'll thank me for this. The bonus tip, get some accountability, get a coach. Did you guys know that people in coaching earn 2 to 7 times as much as those who are not in coaching? And this is from my own experience coaching you guys. One-on-one coaching clients earn 2 to 7 times as much money. Okay. Some of the other coaches have even higher numbers. They'll talk about 8 times. That's hard to get to. I average about 3 times, 2 to 3 times. So people that are in coaching versus what they did last year, you will see a 2 to 3x on your production. Okay. So reach out to me, let me know that you're interested, and I would be happy to help you out. Okay. We'll go through this kind of stuff, but in very small chunks and over again to make sure that you're getting there where you need to be. Okay. And I wanted to open up to questions. Okay. This is going to be a lot of hard work, but let me know what your questions are. Nothing? I've unmuted everybody so you can chat if you want to. Good stuff. Okay, no questions. We shall call it a day, and we'll talk to you guys later. Have a great day.
Thanks, Doug.
Bye, Doug. Thanks.
Yep.
Bye.